Well, the venogram that we demonstrated here today was on a normal horse. So that is the complete normal venous picture highlighted by radio opaque or contrast media that was injected in its liquid form into the veins, and the x-rays picked it up as white lines. So that was a normal venogram, and practitioners need to study the normal venogram so that they can appreciate when things go wrong. And I spent some time outlining the normal anatomy of the venogram. So the venogram, when it's abnormal, will show compression of the veins, and they will not fill with contrast. And that's telling you that you've got distorted hoof horn growth or tubular hoof growth in these various areas. It's usually concentrated in the front part of the foot. And in conjunction with farriers, we can remove that hoof and support the foot from the back half with special shoes and resect strategically areas around the toe where those pressure points are occurring. So we relieve the pressure points, return the tissues to normal, and the venogram will often restore itself to a normal appearance, and growth will be established in a more normal fashion. And the horse has a chance of being rehabilitated. They may never, and another point in my lecture was that a lot of this damage is permanent to the lamellae, and because there's so much torn and separated, they can't re-establish connections to the trunks of the lamellae that attach to the hoof wall. So they're forever compromised in the more severe cases. The majority of modern research is incremental increases in understanding through a lot of painstaking, hard, time-consuming work. With some of our experiments, we work round the clock for 2-3 days with teams of researchers, gradually accumulating evidence. And a lot of my success has come from having the opportunity at the university to think long and hard about our results and the implications of the results. And if I can quote Einstein, intelligence is important, but imagination is the most important thing. And I think in discussions with my colleagues, imagining the consequences and the significance of our findings is still leading us, I hope, towards a direction when we can arrest and treat a lot of these processes effectively for practitioners to be able to do much better against laminitis, which is still one of the most important killing diseases of horses. In insurance companies, the second greatest claim for death amongst horses, or euthanasia amongst horses, after colic, is this disease, laminitis. We've done research in the potency of grass at certain times of the day in certain seasons, but I haven't had really the opportunity here at this seminar to discuss that. But there is a publication that you can get from the federal government, rardc.com, I think, .gov or .gov.com.au. We've published a booklet on how to manage laminitis, control, prevent laminitis, simply from pasture. They need to advise their clients that certain times of the year the pasture can trigger laminitis, and they need to understand why that is the case. One of the things that we haven't covered is the potency of insulin. We've discovered that like the epidemic of type 2 diabetes amongst human beings, horses and ponies are allowed to become more obese than they should be. And when they are obese, they slip into a disease process we call the metabolic syndrome. And these ponies or horses are insulin resistant. So where a normal horse would respond to a high carbohydrate meal with an insulin response and metabolize the glucose, these horses in metabolic syndrome are resistant to insulin, so more insulin is secreted, and gradually the insulin concentration of the blood climbs to a point where it will trigger laminitis. And in our research, we've been able to show that insulin alone will cause laminitis. So that's another contribution our lab has made to the understanding of laminitis amongst the community. And a simple blood test will tell you whether a horse has too much insulin in its blood. And to control that, like people, exercise and diet, easy to say, hard to do, exercise and diet will bring the insulin back under control when the animals become slim and fit again. We've got several projects underway. Our lab is still extremely active here in Australia and internationally. We've just received 2 American grants from our equine research funding body in the United States of America called the Grayson Jockey Club. So from them, over the next 2 years, we're getting about $120,000 for 2 projects to understand why horses forced to bear all of their weight on one limb develop laminitis. And the other project is to understand more about how cryotherapy works, and we're going to delay the onset of laminitis, or delay the onset of the cryotherapy as laminitis develops, and see at what time point after the beginning of laminitis the cryotherapy can work, which is an important consideration because many people don't encounter the laminitis until it's fairly well underway. So we've got another project being funded from England where we're trying to put a tiny needle under the hoof wall itself and slowly infuse drugs in there that might chemically inhibit the enzymes of the laminitis process. So there's lots to do.